Welcome to this meeting of the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board. In the absence of the chair, may I seek an appointment for the position of chair for the duration of the meeting, please?
Could I move Councillor Laura Rollins as the chair?
Thank you, Councillor Moore. There be no more nominations. Councillor Rollins, you are elected chair for the meeting. Will you take the chair, please?
Not a problem. Thank you. So, welcome to this meeting of the Budget and Corporate Scrutiny Management Board. My name is Councillor Rollins and I'll be chairing this meeting. In accordance with the 2020 coronavirus regulations, this meeting is being held virtually to facilitate attendance and to enable the consideration of important matters during the current COVID-19 situation. This meeting will therefore operate differently, with members of the board joining us remotely to contribute and vote on any matters. I would ask all attendees to mute their microphones unless they have been invited to speak. And please contact Alex Goddard if you experience any technical difficulties during the meeting. Depending on the device you are using to log in with, please use either the hands up icon in the control bar or type a question mark in the chat function. If you wish to speak during the meeting, the chair will indicate when you can speak. When you are finished, please remember to mute your microphone. Following questions and any debate, and in order to make a decision on any item, I will ask members whether they are for or against a proposal or if they wish to abstain. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed online and members of the public and the press are allowed by law to film, audio record, take photographs, blog or tweet during the meeting. Firstly, I'll ask scrutiny members to introduce themselves. Councillor Moore.
Paul Moore, Councillor for Hatley Heath and Chair of the Safer Neighbourhoods panel.
Councillor Giles.
Councillor Elaine Giles, Chair of the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Board.
Councillor Piper.
Sorry. Councillor Bob Piper, Vice Chair of the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Board.
Councillor Priest.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Liam Priest. I'm the Vice Chair of the Children's Services and Education Scrutiny Board.
Thank you. And I'd also like to introduce Alex Goddard and Shane Parks from Democratic Services, who will be supporting this meeting. So if we move to the agenda, have we had any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. Apologies received from Councillor Luke Giles.
And does any member have any interest to declare in matters to be discussed at the meeting?
I don't have a direct interest to declare, but I just wanted to make you aware that I'd been involved in previous decisions in relation to the cessation of the BT contract and the purchase of the lease, originally in relation to this building when I was a cabinet member.
Thank you. Anything else? So there's been no additional urgent items of business for this meeting. So can I ask Alison Knight, Tammy Stokes and Chris Ward to present the item, please?
Thank you, Chair. Alison Knight, Executive Director Neighbourhoods. I'll be starting off the presentation, and then my plan is to do a background overview of the recommendations, bring in Tammy Stokes to talk a little bit about the options and the overview of the appraisal, and then Chris Ward will come in to talk about the educational advantages of this particular proposal. There will be things that we may need to refer to, but they would need to go into private sessions. So what we will be doing in the public session is to be keeping to the overview, and any detail on the some of the proposals that are still commercially confidential would need to go into private session. Okay, thank you. So first of all, the Scrutiny Board will have had the paper, which is to set out the future use that is being proposed for Providence Place and other assets in West Bromwich Town Centre. And the recommendations you'll see are, first of all, to agree that One Providence Place and the remaining development plot be declared surplus to the council requirements, and to authorise the Director Law and Governance and myself, the Executive Director Neighbourhoods, enter into an associated transfer agreement relative to the disposal of 1 Providence Place and the associated land to be negotiated with the Department for Education, and then also to do similarly with an agreement for the occasional use of West Bromwich Town Hall. So what we want to do today is to really give some background to this and then explore the other options and to discuss whether this is felt to be the best option that would then go forward to Cabinet. So as you'll be aware, on the 22nd of July, Cabinet approved that 1 Providence Place was surplus to the office accommodation requirements, and the proposal is therefore to take a report to a future Cabinet at the end of August for a decision on what the future use would be and to look at the options for this. We've set out the preferred use for the asset, and it is our opinion that the disposal of the property and adjacent development plot be sold to Department for Education, which would allow them to develop a new 750 place free school on these sites, with additional accommodation being made at West Bromwich Town Hall, and for them to also invest in that. And that would therefore bring in the prestigious City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra Academy to Sandwell, which we'll come on to in a while. Just a little bit of the background that is under section 3. You'll be aware at present that we do have commercial tenants in Providence Place, and we know that BT are planning to relocate to Birmingham as soon as their new offices are ready for occupation in spring 2021. So this could result in Providence Place becoming entirely empty by early 2021 as soon as they leave. We have received a direct approach from the Department of Education, and this really followed on from an application that we put forward in conjunction with the Shireland Collegiate Academy Trust to propose that the CBSO Academy come to Sandwell. And the proposals that we put forward were for 2 plots of land, one beside Providence Place and also another piece of land. Whilst the application was considered successful and the DFE were very keen, as were the CBSO Academy, to come to Sandwell, the split site solution was seen to be unviable to the DFE and rejected, and other sites were then looked at, and we'll come on to some of that within the options. So they approached us to look at Providence Place in September last year. In the meantime, we have also been looking at our own provision of what we will need as a council, and particularly in light of recent developments with COVID and working at home, hence the proposal around this being surplus to requirements. So if the sorry about that, somebody's knocking on the door, I do apologise. If the new academy was if we were unable to actually agree to this, we have reviewed all of the sites across Sandwell, which again we'll come on to, and the DFE have advised us that they do have other available sites in neighbouring boroughs and that they would look to deliver that there. I also want to make it clear that this is about the CBSO Academy. If the DFE were not to be able to build that, whilst we could build a school, it would not be the CBSO Academy. So this is really to make that clear. Before we go on to the options, and Chris will come on and talk a little bit more about the risk around education and other things as we come towards the end of the report. I just wanted to remind members a little bit about the history of Providence Place, and clearly that was mentioned at the start, that some of this is in the private papers, but as an overview, We signed a strategic partnership agreement in 2017 with British Telecom, and we used council-owned land to, we provided that at a peppercorn rent to developers to construct Providence Place in 2011, and BT agreed the terms with the developers and took out a lease. Clearly, we then took on the lease as part of the end of the relationship with BT, and then later decided to purchase back the building from the developers, which included the lease. And again, we can go into further detail on that. And that happened in 2014. So that gives you a little bit of a history as to the background to Providence Place and why we took that on as office accommodation in the background. So I think it's probably useful to move on to Tammy now to go through the main options that are available to the council, other than what we're suggesting around the school, and then for Scrutiny to consider how officers have looked at this, looked at the evidence, and considered which would be the best option moving forward. Tammy, can you come on into the...
Yes, thank you, Alison. So as Alison mentioned, the scrutiny report before you follows on from the Cabinet decision made last month to declare Providence Place surplus to council office accommodation requirements, and officers are now recommending the disposal of Providence Place to the DFE for a school. As Alison mentioned, the DFE are working with Birmingham Symphony Orchestra to bring forward a 750 place senior school, opening in time for the 2023 school term. And just to note that the DFE have committed to this time frame with the CBSO, and they've confirmed if we can't move in this time to facilitate the opening date, they will have to look outside of Sandwell. There's several opportunities for Sandwell with having the CBSO in West Bromwich, particularly around the cultural offer the CBSO will bring to the town centre. But there are other options that have been reviewed. The three main options are set out in the report, and there are an additional three options, which were to build the school ourselves, to sell the site on the open market, or to mothball the building. And those options are explored in Appendix 1 of the report. So the three main options are to retain Providence Place and re-let as office accommodation, to convert Providence Place to residential using the housing revenue account, and of course the preferred option or the recommended option, which is to sell Providence Place to the Department for Education for use as a school. So in relation to option 1, which is reletting Providence Place for office accommodation, we've had some advice from Cushman and Wakefield, the council's letting advisors, and that advice suggests that the council would be unlikely to let the building to one tenant, meaning the building would have to be let on a floor-by-floor basis. They've also advised us that there would be a regular turnover of tenants, meaning income would fluctuate year on year. In terms of forecasted income, it's estimated that the building wouldn't achieve full occupancy until 2024-25 at the earliest, and that is on the assumption that the office market recovers as expected post-COVID. So assuming that the office market accommodation does recover as expected, Providence Place could generate an income of about 2.48 million over 7 years between January 2020 and December 2027. But given the uncertainties around letting commercial space and the potential fluctuations in income due to market uncertainties, this option is not recommended. Moving on to the second option, which was around converting Providence Place to residential using the housing revenue account. The key thing to note with this option is that the immediate environment surrounding Providence Place is not a good fit for residential. There'd be limited amenity space for residents, and the outlook would be extremely poor for those apartments facing the adjacent office block. The conversion, however, would be able to create 102 apartments, and the cost of doing that conversion would be 17 million. We've had that estimated. But in addition to the 17 million conversion cost, we would have to pay for the appropriation of the building at market rent from the general fund, at market value, sorry, from the general fund to the housing revenue account. So when you add in that appropriation cost, the cost per flat would be around £265,000. And in terms of payback, that would take about 60 years to pay back, where the normal threshold for this type of investment is around 40 years. So given the issues around the quality of the residential environment that would be created and the costs of converting the building, this option is also not recommended. The final option, and the option proposed to be recommended to Cabinet, is of course to dispose of Providence Place, the Department for Education for a school, creating the 750 place school and contributing to our school place provision, as well as securing the CBSO in Sandwell. Providence Place itself is considered a suitable location for a school in planning terms, benefiting from good public transport links, and there's also associated benefits around drawing people into the town centre and increasing footfall. The CBSO itself would provide a cultural offer in West Bromwich. As Alison said, the proposal is to use the town hall, so that would further enhance the evening economy in West Bromwich. The proposal for the use of the town hall is that the council would facilitate events at the town hall for up to 19 times per year, but there's no obligations on the council to invest in the town hall to facilitate these events. The obligation in the heads of terms is that the council would use its best endeavours to find alternative premises for the events if the town hall wasn't available for any reason, but there's no requirement for the council to do any capital investment works. Officers are satisfied that the values negotiated with the DFE represent the best value that could be achieved, and they're favourable to those values that we would be able to achieve if we advertise the building for sale on the open market. We've also reviewed whether it would be more cost effective if the council retained Providence Place and delivered a school itself. Chris, would you like to come in at this point and just talk about that option?
Yeah, I mean, the option for delivering a school ourselves does not deliver, as Alison said, the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra school. What we would have to do is go through a presumption process and find our own sponsor to deliver a new academy in the same way as we've done on 2 previous builds. If we were going to follow that route, then we would have to fund the work through our basic needs capital monies allowance that we have, and we expect that to cost around £17 million to deliver if we were going to follow that route. So the reason why we're moving towards the DFE's offer is that the expenditure will go with the DFE. Now, if we use our basic capital allowance monies to do this, obviously that's other projects that get pushed to one side, and we have to wait for the money to come in. The government pays the money annually based on the number of children arriving in each year group, rather than for the whole school in one go. So if we were to do it, we'd have to phase things over time, which is not the simplest and easiest solution to do, and it's one we've had to try before with other builds. It means you have to do things in 2 or 3 phases, or we have to get a capital loan to deliver it all in one go. So this is why we think the DFE's offer is a strong offer.
Thank you, Chris. Just to move on, I'd like Scrutiny to note that the preferred option has been subject to a strategic investment unit appraisal. and the proposal has achieved a score of 55%. This is below the 65% threshold at which projects are normally recommended for unconditional approval. The SIU appraisal tool, however, is used predominantly to assess capital investment by the council. Therefore, the appraisal doesn't recognise any social value or give any additional weight to the wider strategic benefits of the proposal, such as, for example, the impact the CBSO would have on the cultural offer and evening economy in West Bromwich. The Strategic Investment Unit report concludes that it would be prudent to address a number of key points before recommending approval. So I thought it would be useful if I just ran through each of these key points in the conclusion of that report. The first point is that further evidence to support the option appraisal, particularly in relation to why the council could not deliver a school itself or expand existing schools in the locality, was needed. But Chris has just explained that if we went down this route and provided a school ourselves, or if we took the decision just to expand existing schools in the locality, then we would not secure the CBSO as the provider. The second point that was raised was a request for further evidence to discount the option of retaining the building as an investment asset or mothballing it for sale in the future. And as I mentioned earlier, we've had external expert advice, and that external expert advice suggests that if we retain Providence Place as an investment, we're unlikely to secure tenants on a long-term lease basis. So there's risk associated with that option. In terms of mothballing, we could mothball the building, but again, managing an empty building raises other issues around security, the impact on the image of the area, and the holding costs of holding a mothball building. The third point was to ensure that any sale to the DFE is made on the most financially advantageous terms to the council, and that restrictions are placed on the use of the building. Now, in relation to this, as I mentioned, officers are satisfied that the disposal price negotiated with the DFE is above the market value, and that was the market value in March 2020, so pre-COVID value. The heads of terms also set out a number of conditions that the DFE have to meet before the building sale completes, including obtaining planning permission and having a contractor procured to take possession and start work. So this gives some protection to the council that a school will be delivered rather than anything else. There's also a right of preemption in the heads of terms, which means that should, in the unlikely event, the DFE cannot progress with a new school, or should the school come to an end sooner than we envisage, then the council have an unfettered ability to step in and reacquire the asset at market value, and that right of preemption is in place for 25 years from the completion of sale. The fourth point was around ensuring that any future costs in relation to the Workplace Vision programme can be funded from within existing resources. And whilst we need to provide this evidence to the Strategic Investment Unit, budgets are already in place to undertake the works required in Council House Albury to accommodate any displaced staff from Providence Place. The fifth point, and I might ask Chris to come in here, was to determine the financial implications of having to fund additional temporary school places until the new school becomes operational in September 2023. Chris, is there anything you want to say on that point?
Yeah, there's two ways we can look at this. The first way is that if you put temporary accommodation on a school, you would have to leave it there for 5 years once you put a child in that school, so they can be accommodated for the whole of their school career in a secondary school. So using that figure, and for example, using porter cabin as an example of the costs, you'd be looking at 800,000 per year group that you had to take in. So over time, that would build up to about 4.5 million before you've got anywhere, and that would be money that you couldn't get back because you just spent it out on rental or moving temporary classrooms about. The other way you could look at it is putting bricks and mortar solutions on schools who would then benefit once the children have gone through the school. And you can look at 2.7 to 3 million for every 150 children you place in a school. So therefore that would cost us about 15 million, and we'd have to find school sites to do that on that was suitable. And as you know, with Sandwell being quite a compact place, it's quite difficult to find schools with enough space to put an extra 150 pupils on at any one time. But it just gives you an idea of what the cost would be if we went down those two routes.
Thank you, Chris. So there's, excuse me. So there's 2 points left to cover from the SIU report. The 6th point was to consider the future economic impact on the local area from the loss of a high quality commercial property. Well, this point is quite difficult to demonstrate with any certainty given the post-COVID-19 market for office space. However, that external advice that I mentioned earlier showed that it was unlikely that we would secure one tenant for the building. And there's an inherent risk that the council could be left with an empty or partially empty building given the economic uncertainty, and that in itself would have a negative impact on the local economy. A new school would also have a positive impact on the local economy through increased footfall in the town centre and, as I said, the cultural offer. The final point that was made in the SIU conclusion was that we needed to confirm the likely future level of investment required to maintain West Bromwich Town Hall and the method of funding that investment. So, as I mentioned, the heads of terms negotiated with the DFE do not require any additional investment or improvement of the Town Hall, but there is that clause that the council use its best endeavours to find alternative performance space if it can't be provided within the Town Hall. But that said, we're looking at how we can make improvements to the Town Hall, and part of the accelerated funding through the Towns Fund is to be invested into that building, and there's potential for further funding from the main Town Fund pot. So whilst the SIU score is 55%, it's felt that additional justification can be provided to some extent to address the conclusions of the report. But that said, given the score at the moment is 55%, it's on that basis that we've brought the recommendations to you today. And therefore we're asking that Scrutiny acknowledge that the score is 55% before we proceed to Cabinet. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Did we have any questions from Scrutiny members? Councillor Moore. Councillor Moore, we can't hear you. Are you speaking?
Sorry, myself on mute. To what extent has the council looked at privately owned sites in West Bromwich with regards to this particular proposal? I mean, I can think of a few potential sites that could be open to negotiation or potential acquisition. So there's the Swan Village Gasworks site owned by the National Grid, former Springworks site on Thomas Street, former car showroom plot at Carter's Green owned by Evans Halshaw, potentially even the purchase of the Farley Centre.
Tammy, are you able to come into this one?
Yeah,
you're involved in the assessment. Thank you.
Yeah. Some of the ones that you mentioned weren't available at the time we did the assessment. So the Carter's Green site has only just become available. But in terms of sort of connectivity with the town and public transport. It's not in quite as good location as Providence Place. I know that some of the other sites you've mentioned are coming forward for residential development now, and the Farley Centre has got a new owner who has invested in that. We did look at private sites. I think part of the issue was how quickly the DFE need to move on this site to deliver the CBSO school by 2023. So the DFE preference was to work with the council. That doesn't mean we didn't assess private sites, because the ones that were available at the time were looked at.
Okay, I've got a couple of other questions. I don't know if you want me to continue or to bring Councillor Preece in.
Do you want to continue, and I'll bring Councillor Preece in afterwards?
Okay, similarly, two kind of fairly prominent council sites I'd like some reassurance over as well, which is the former Shaftesbury House site on the High Street, which I think has been looked at. But also the council is in the process, I understand, of demolishing the multi-storey car park in West Bromwich. Now, I appreciate that site hadn't been envisaged for CBSO, but again, could I have some reassurance that potentially that site has been considered as part of this?
Yes, so in terms of the Shaftesbury House site, we're working with an affordable homes provider to deliver a scheme on that site. In relation to the multi-storey car park, we have looked at that as an option for this. The DFE have considered it and discounted it because of its location and its relationship to Plot 4 Providence Place. But more importantly, we have aspirations to come forward with a comprehensive redevelopment of that site for residential-led development, and we have secured some funding from the Combined Authority to demolish the car park, and that's linked to providing residential outputs. So we want to achieve something different on that site for West Bromwich, and that would be residential-led redevelopment. Thank you, Chair.
A couple of other points, if I may. First of all, it's alluded in the report about use of the town hall in terms of CBSO contributing a sum towards that. I presume there is a separate report or a separate business case coming forward at some point with regards to the wider refurbishment of the town hall. And second point, really, I think I can see why we've come to the recommendation we have in the report, but kind of one of the weaknesses in the report is that we haven't actually market tested the building. Now, I appreciate we're not in great circumstances at the minute with COVID, but I just wonder whether there is any possibility of actually doing that, or indeed twin tracking the process by marketing it perhaps at the same time. I don't know, I just thought I'd make that point.
Can I bring David in to answer the point about the West Bromwich Town Hall and also the marketing of the site? David Harris?
Good evening. So yeah, firstly, in respect of the town hall, yes, we have got some refurbishment proposals, and as Tammy Stokes sort of mentioned, we are looking at sort of accessing some additional funds from a town's fund to do a more sort of holistic sort of refurbishment. The heads of terms don't stipulate that we need to spend the capital contribution on the town hall. That capital contribution is purely a payment for that use for 19 occasions per year. However, there are outstanding wants of repair to the town hall which need to be assessed, and as members of Scrutiny will be aware, there's continual pressure on our PMA property maintenance accounts, so any additional work that we can do would ease our budget pressures elsewhere. So yes, in answer to your question, we are looking at sort of potential options for improvement and refurbishment of the town hall, and absolutely we can bring those back to Scrutiny when they're in a position to do so. But I'll just go back to reiterate that we're not contractually bound should we proceed with the deal with the DFE to spend any money on the town hall at this point in time in conjunction with any agreement that we enter into. Secondly, in respect of the marketing of Providence Place, as you may be aware, we had a floor within Providence Place become vacant last year when one of the subsidiary bodies from BT, Aptos, actually moved out, and we instructed Cushman and Wakefield to market the premises for us. Because we knew that the council's accommodation requirements were changing, and we knew that BT had long-term ambitions to relocate. At the point that we went to the market with the availability of the fourth floor, we also advertised the possibility that the rest of the building may be available, and that the rest of the building may be available either for rent or for disposal. And during that period of time, we've had no offers or interest come forward. The only interest that's come forward has been from the DFE. We did have some interest in taking the fourth floor space on a rental basis, but the prospective tenants wanted a fairly sort of hefty incentive package, and similarly post-COVID that interest have withdrawn their interest, because like many other organisations, they've done a full review of their accommodation requirements. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Priest?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me for not turning my video on. I'm having a bit of bandwidth issues at the moment. It seems to work better without the video on. I just wanted to make a point around, ask a question around the town hall again, and just build a little bit on what Councillor Moore asked. I wondered if anyone could give any kind of detail around the everyday use of the town hall by the school, aside from these events that are going to be hopefully hosted there several times a year. Will the school be making use of the town hall on an everyday basis all day for rehearsals or lessons? My only concern there being is I'd like to seek some assurance that there will still be access for community groups to go in and use that building for other purposes as well, not just the school to use it. Thank you.
I'll come in first of all, and then I may ask Chris to come in. I understand that is not the case, that they are looking at 19 times a year, but Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
No, part of the design proposals for Providence Place would include practice spaces on the site rather than having to use the town hall for it. So it is the 19 uses. Equally, we might be saying to them we'd want them to use it more, particularly if they are very successful events that they do put on with the CBSO. It may be a negotiable thing that we can use for the best interests of Sandwell as well. But initially, it's just the events that they've booked up for that we will have to negotiate dates and times for, and everything after that will be off-site on the Providence Place site.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Priest?
Yes, it does. Thank you. I mean, I agree with Chris that actually, I mean, these events could serve as a starting point to really build a cultural offer in West Bromwich, and I think that could potentially be a huge boost for the area in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Piper?
Thanks, Chair. I don't share the other members' intimate knowledge of the geography of West Bromwich, but could somebody explain to me what the development plot is and what the proposals are for the development plot?
Tommy, do you want to come in with that one? May need Chris as well, actually.
Yeah. So the development plot is on the corner of Providence Place and Sandwell Road. It's proposed to build some sporting provision for dedicated use for the school. Chris, is there anything else that you wanted to add?
I've actually got a picture of the site on a PowerPoint, and I can actually, if people wouldn't mind, I could actually talk to that and show the picture of the site if people are not sure about what we're looking at. Would that help?
Yeah, that would help, because I was trying to look at it on Google Earth and it's not quite so successful.
Okay, a second. Okay, has this screen come up for you?
Yes, it has.
Yes.
Okay. Right, I know networks are not great at the moment, so if this breaks up, please bear with me as we go through. So hopefully you can see this. Okay. I just want to put a few points together. The approval for the school and the academy to work together with CBSO was back in June 2019 and followed 2 years of intensive work we've had with the department. This would be the UK's first school to be established in collaboration with an orchestra. I mean, it is really groundbreaking what we're suggesting here. And the collaboration is one that's giving a great deal of excitement in many quarters, particularly in the Arts Council. And the idea would be draw students from all backgrounds across Sandwell to benefit from this. Now, it would be a normal full rounded education, but music being the specialism all the way through. And that's all types of music, not just classical music, that would be in there. And we're aiming to see this radical new approach to musical education as a result. It's cited in Providence Place is right by SIPS Education, where our music service is based, actually, in the council as well. So there's an almost natural link between what we have already and the new CBSO. Now, clearly, the CBSO is a very prestigious organisation. Stephen Maddock, OBE, is the guy we've been talking to there. And he wants to build on the tradition they've got of innovation for music. They've got a 100th anniversary of the CBSO coming up. They see this as a fantastic opportunity to have an all-inclusive nurturing school as part of their portfolio and celebrating that work as well. And what they think is that the partnership that we've got is something that's very unique and not replicated in any other part of the country. This is why we're pushing down this route, as I said, supported by the Arts Council itself. For those of you who don't know Providence Place, here it is. On the site of the ring road going on the bypass. It's well situated. This is about how it fits in with our vision for the 2030. One of our things we say is we want to try and get a reputation for getting things done. And I think this project gives us an opportunity to do that. There's long-term benefits for us in terms of what it brings to the area, particularly into the West Bromwich corner, as well as Tammy's pointed out. The building will be iconic. They will be looking at putting some extension works onto it as well, to put performance spaces in, as well as using the extra land that Tammy's been talking about to ensure they have the sporting elements attached to it as well. It's really accessible. And what it brings to the council is the DFE will be investing around £17 million of DFE money into this, as well as purchasing the building. And that in itself gives us some respite in terms of our place planning, that they will deliver this 750 place. It's very visible in terms of what will people see when they come into West Bromwich. The first thing they'll probably see is a big CBSO school as they move in. The opportunities for our young people is absolutely immense. The ability to be able to go and start a secondary school with music specialism for those who have aptitude is absolutely fantastic, and I can see it becoming a very popular school extremely quickly. So in summary, it's a partnership with a world-renowned organisation. It's an exceptional opportunity for us. The pressures on our secondary pupil place planning have become significantly reduced because all the primary children in the surge we've got at the moment are moving into secondary, and we need these places quickly. The high-performing academy sponsor, Shireland, that it's working with, is one of our top-performing schools and has been for a number of years. So it adds to the quality of what we've got, and it brings this significant investment for the local education system, as well as the cultural opportunities we can see in the borough. We think it ticks many boxes as a result. So, Chair, I hope that helps with people understanding what we're trying to achieve.
Councillor Piper? Still on mute, Councillor Piper.
Sorry. I didn't see the map of this location of this development plot. Was that supposed to be on there and I missed it, or wasn't it on there?
Sorry, I didn't have a map. I was hoping the image of the building would be able to show you where it was. But I don't have the map.
I know what the building looks like. It's just the development plot that's referred to that I couldn't identify. So where is it?
Tammy, are you best to explain that one?
Yes, I was just looking on Google Maps to see if I could share the screen to show you where it is, Councillor Piper. It's not far, I'd say it's a less than 2-minute walk from Providence Place. If you walk down from Providence Place past the headquarters of West Bromwich Building Society, it would be on your right. So it's not far at all, but I will send you a plan.
So is it that patch of green, triangular shape?
It is triangular shaped, yes.
Yeah, okay. That answers my question, really.
Okay.
Just another question. This morning I watched the GCSE results been unveiled on BBC Breakfast Television from Bristol Hall School in Birmingham, which obviously it isn't, it's in Sandwell really, and having the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra emblazoned over the top of a building in West Bromwich doesn't do a lot about increasing our identity, really. So the one thing I would like to say is, are there any guarantees for admissions for any children from Sandwell, or are they all going to be from Birmingham?
Okay, the school is being designed and the catchment area is designed to work for children in Sandwell. Which is why we were going for that location in West Bromwich. We'll be talking to Shireland and the CBSO about how we operate the system for admissions so that Sandwell children get priority into the school. I mean, clearly we want pupils with aptitude in Sandwell to get places first, and we want the places to go to all Sandwell children because that helps with our place planning. So we'll be working very hard to ensure that that's exactly what happens. The positioning of the school should allow children from all areas to be able to use it. We've already got one example of the school which operates nodal points, which is Sandwell Academy, and that means children in all parts of the borough can get into Sandwell Academy, even though that is actually on the border with Birmingham. That's filled with Sandwell children, and we'll look to see what's possible with the CBSO school as well to ensure Sandwell children get in there first.
Thanks for that. Just to come back briefly, sorry, Laura, on the development plots, what is it going to be used for? Sorry.
It's going to be used for sporting provision.
Does that mean building? Sorry.
It will be building, yeah. There'll be a building. We've seen an outline plan of what that could be developed as, and it's a sports hall type development.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Moore.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I think most people on the call, and in fact probably everyone, is supportive of the actual proposal, but if I could kind of take it back to Providence Place itself, which is really the issue in the report. I mean, given the sort of whole financial complexity of the building, the history of it, the lease, you know, the strategic investment unit school that's referred to in the report, which is lower than what would normally be the case. I just wonder at this point whether we've actually sought the view of the council's external auditor. I mean, I think it would be fairly apparent that this would come up in the council's annual audit anyway. So my kind of question is, wouldn't it be better to seek their view at this point, and also for some further reassurance for scrutiny as well? Second question, if I may, is kind of around timescales. Obviously, I'm aware this is coming ahead of the Cabinet report, but presumably at some point the DFE and CBSO will just walk away. Could somebody perhaps elaborate on what those timescales are?
Chris, you're on mute.
Apologies, I'm here now. Yes, we've been talking to the DFE around this one. Initially, the DFE had set us a timeline to complete the work by June of this year. And we've been seeking an extension since then to move forward. We're almost at the end of that extension right now, hence the Cabinet report is coming in next week. We are expecting, the DFE expecting a decision from us at Cabinet so they can move forward, because clearly the place planning issue is the biggest one in terms of moving forward. So they are prepared to walk away if we don't want to proceed with this project. And they will do that. I understand they have places that they will move to in other boroughs of sites they already might want to put the school on. So it's an opportunity for us to grasp, and if we're going to do it, we have to do it now. I hope that helps.
With regards to the external audit, oh, sorry, can everybody hear me? With regards to the external audit, it is one that we can take away and look at and speak to our colleagues to take that one further.
But I kind of think my point on that, Alison, is it's going to come up in the council's external annual audit anyway. I would have thought. I think it's still Grant Thornton unless it's changed. I just kind of think it might be prudent to ask for their view at this point.
Okay, that's something that we can pick up. We've clearly worked with the Section 151 and the SIU team on this, so yeah, we can clearly take that one away. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, in that case, I would suggest that we move to a private session in order that any of the commercially confidential questions can be asked. So I'd move that the public and press be excluded from the rest of the meeting to avoid the possible disclosure of exempt information under Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972 as amended by the Local Government Access to Information Variation Order 2006 relating to the financial or business affairs of any particular person, including the authority holding that information. Is that movement seconded?
I'll second the motion, yes.
Thank you. Alex, can we pause the meeting there while we